Welcome to Jersey Justice, a civil law podcast, solving the world's problems one podcast at a time.
All right, so we were talking about my experience with my friend who transitioned from male to female, and that informs a lot of my understanding and my politics on the trans rights issue, which is, for some reason, has become the cause célèbre, particularly of the right, pushing back against it. Now, when it comes,
Just to cut you off, but so what percentage of the population is trans? Just when you, if you were to, because the way you're right, it's been kind of demonized and sensationalized to be this gigantic thing by the right. It seems to be such a small percentage.
Under 1%.
So certainly under 1%. And I'm kind of with you. And the way I've thought about this stuff, because again, we talked about it, we kind of grew up in different generations and things. And when I was in college, Proposition 8 was something that was on the ballot about allowing, same-sex marriage. And the arguments that were being made against it, how Satan will reach up with his claws and pull humanity down into, I was like, this is absurd. We're going to look back on this in, 20 years and be like, that's insane that we ever thought that same-sex couples should be treated any differently than heterosexual couples,
especially under civil law.
100%, and all the benefits.
If a church wants to do whatever a church does, okay. But under civil law, it's a contract.
And I have to imagine that back in the civil rights movement, when you're talking about blacks and whites and things, that was some of the same ideology. This is insane. No one should ever be mixed and all that. And you just see it kind of repeating itself again and again. So I love the point that you made about we need more information. You can change your stance as you get more information, because the trans issue and all those things that are kind of coming up. I think that this is it's not a new thing, but society has become more mainstream. And I hate to say woke because that's not the expression that I would characterize it with, but it's in people's faces more on a regular basis than I think it has been. And it's hopefully there's more information so people can be kind of more informed on it. Because and I know we're talking a lot of personal beliefs and things is, who am I to say what someone else should think about something as fundamental to their identity as their sexuality or how they identify? And is it, that there's been this shift in society where you've got a friend in high school where it's such a big deal for him to come out to you, not making fun of someone for being gay, but for being oh, that's just an expression that you use, and it could be so hurtful to someone, that our world has now progressed to a point, at least our country or much of it in area, where it seems it's almost just oh, okay, cool, man. Do you want to go get pizza? It's not this but for that person, it probably still is.
Yeah. It took a lot of activism.
Yeah.
To get us to that point, to shift the Overton window on these issues. And that's the point I was trying to make, and maybe I made it clumsily or it wasn't clear enough earlier, is that when we look historically and say, using some of the examples you put out there, let's take the civil rights era, clear injustice under the law, right? And laws needed to change. Well, who was defending that the laws stay the way that they are? Who wanted to conserve the status quo?
Yeah.
People who liked how it was.
Benefited from it.
And just didn't want to see the change. Because who knows what could happen? Mm-hmm. God could open up the earth and we all get swallowed up. They were conservative. They wanted to conserve the status quo. Right? And when I look at my heroes, using the word woke, right? Martin Luther King, woke. Mm-hmm. Mahatma Gandhi, woke. Jesus of Nazareth, woke. And I'm going to put my spiritual all-star, Ignatius of Loyola, woke. Yeah. Francis of Assisi, woke. Dorothy Day, founder of the Catholic Worker, woke. I'll put my spiritual all-star team up against any conservative spiritual all-star team and then go, well, who was on the right side of history?
My only other point I want to make on that is I think it's hilarious that woke is essentially used as a derogatory term. When isn't it all that you're trying to find enlightenment and you're trying to find a better understanding of the world and everything, and no matter what religion you're looking at, that kind of is the ideology in some capacity. So God forbid you take a different view of an issue or you think deeper or higher on something than you have in the past. If that's a criticism being woke, then I think that's...
To put it into the framework of, take the last guest you had, right, Brown, to say, thinking of like people that are really out there right now. A lot of people know about David Goggins, Jocko Willink. Well, for me, in terms of woke, this is doing an after-action report on experiences that I had in the past and going, well, what went wrong there? And then if I learn from that experience, well, hey, what I said was homophobic. What I said was racist. Or what I didn't say allowed other people to say those things and keep structures in place. Yeah, I just did my after-action report. I learned that we had some casualties because of that. And the next time I go out into the battlefield, I'm going to have this new awakened knowledge based on that past experience, the analysis that I did, and we're going to attack the problem differently. Right?
Ergo, the phrase woke.
Yeah.
Awakened.
Yeah.
Awakened.
I think.
So, but I'm sorry. I want to come back to the
ahead.
trans sports thing. And again, watching the body language get animated.
Let me just make a quick point, though, on the woke thing. Because when you say MLK was woke and Gandhi and Thomas Ignatius of Loyola was woke, I think one thing is that terms get hijacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, okay, so you say MLK was woke, maybe JFK was woke, okay. But then what you do is, and then you have your spectrum of, and you got your crazies on the right, and you got your crazies on the left. And then they take the crazies on the left, put the label of woke on them, and now suddenly woke is a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Listen,
So there's
this
just
isn't
there's
anything
just
new. Like
of course not.
Words
yeah.
get weaponized. And,
Exactly.
And you look to demonize.
And that's why you have to be careful using words like racist or Nazi, because, okay, Nazi, very bad, right? But then the more, it's like crying wolf, and then the more you start labeling people racist or transphobe or Nazis, well, then it's taking away what the actual Nazis were and what the actual, because when
I had this conversation with one of my employees who's a huge Trump supporter. You should hear before the bar opens up. Saying,
we'll have them in next.
Ready to kill each other. But he throws around the word fascism. Like, Biden's a fascist. I go, dude, there's no historical marker that you could look at fascism and then attach it. I'm not a huge fan of Joe Biden, but that ain't it.
Right. When I grew up and heard the term racist, what conjured in my mind was people spraying fire hoses and sicking German shepherds on people marching in the
peaceful
South.
protest.
And then when you take that label and you call Joe Rogan a racist or I don't know, pick the person, it does disservice to the term.
But I will say this, that I don't think enough people think about, because I don't know if it comes up in conversation so much. Martin Luther King actually had an easier time, and that may be the wrong verbiage. Let me say it and then I'll qualify it. He had an easier time with the guy shooting him with the fire hose, throwing a brick or an M80 at him, or sicking a dog on him, than he did with what he lamented in his letter from a Birmingham jail, the white moderate. Because at least that guy, I know he hates me.
Yeah.
It's visceral.
Yeah.
He's showing me. He's not hiding it.
Yeah.
The white moderate over here tells me, keep doing what you're doing. It's great. We support you. Maybe write a check to the cause. But when I need your boots on the ground, when I need you to stand in the trenches with me, when I need you to challenge your elected officials that you have at your cocktail parties, you're a coward. And you're telling me to slow down, and you're going too fast. His greatest lament in terms of the demographics of the people at the time was the white moderate.
Yeah, but I don't think Jesus would agree with that. Because what did Jesus say about that? Testing your Bible
theology,
knowledge.
Specific to the white moderate, I don't think he said anything.
Turn the other cheek.
Well, that's a completely misunderstood phrase that gets thrown out.
But
don't cast the first stone.
Nope.
Treat others as you would want them to treat you.
Come on, let's go Bible trivia.
Remember he said something like, if they're not against you, they're for you. There was a question about in the Romans and this kind of thing, and Jesus said, if they're not against you, they're for you.
I don't think that was Jesus.
Can you look that up?
Yeah.
Oscar?
Check the book of Timothy, I believe that was in.
It's Ecclesiastics,
Just look up the phrase,
Yeah.
and if you could just read it about when Jesus said, "If they're not against you, they're for you."
I googled that really quickly and I saw it's it's from the book of Mark.
And what does it say? Read
And
that.
it's
What that means.
okay, the whole thing. It's do not stop him, Jesus said, for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything about me. For whoever is not against us is for us. I don't know if that's the.
So what we would need to
Okay.
do here, Jerry, and this is a mistake that people make, is we're attempting in a very quick way by reading, you say it, he looks up the phrase real quick.
Yeah.
Theologians would say we have to be careful. We actually need some biblical exegesis here.
Yeah, the contextual.
So we have to completely contextualize
Yeah.
it and ask what was happening in that moment.
Yeah, of course.
What was so you use turn the other cheek. One of the most misunderstood stories in the gospel. You've got to imagine the scene. Occupied Palestine, Imperial Roman army, right? Could just beat the shit out of anybody on any given day if they wanted to. And here are people that are oppressed. They want the Romans out. Some believing Jesus to be the Messiah, the one that's going to lead them out. And they thought it was going to be a violent revolution.
Military leader.
Right? Military leader.
Yeah.
And here are these people going, but don't you see what the Romans do to us? You want us to love them? You want us to love our enemy? Pray for those who persecute us? He smacked my son in the face the other day just because he looked at him the wrong way. My brother's dead 3 years now because he stood up on an issue that shouldn't be a big deal. And they killed him and there's no justice. What do you want us to do? Well, they couldn't raise an army that could fight against the Romans. So Jesus was giving them a way to fight, to non-violently struggle, to try to change the hearts of their oppressor. So, under Roman law, so Jesus says, listen, if someone asks you to go a mile carrying their pack, go 2. What the hell does that mean? Under Roman laws of occupation, if I'm a Roman centurion and I got my bag, I can grab, in this case, any Jew and say, carry my bag. But I can only do it for a mile. If we go beyond that, my supervisor can give me a hard time. And the idea was, okay, you can beat the people up a little bit, but if you go too far, it's going to cause problems. So they created these laws. So imagine the scene now. It's subservience. I'm trying to humiliate you. Come here, carry my bag. And we go a mile. I'm like, all right, give it to me, because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And your response is, oh, no, I got it, dude. How far do you want to go? Want to go 2 miles? 5? I'm free all day. How long? You want to just keep me marching until I collapse? I'll do it. Do you see how I just took your power away?
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's a scene of Band of Brothers, I think, where there's something like that.
So Jesus says, if someone asks for your coat or your shirt, give them your cloak as well. Under Roman laws of occupation, or if they ask for your cloak, give them your shirt as well. I could, as the centurion, I could take your cloak. So imagine the scene. We're hanging out in the marketplace. I'm trying to abuse my power over you. Give me your cloak. Okay, here, take the cloak. You want my shirt too? Here's my pants. Take it all. And now I'm standing here naked. Who just got humiliated? Me, who's held on to my dignity, or you, and exposing you for being weak, for trying to oppress me? Now, the third one is, if they strike you on the right cheek, offer them the left as well.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. First century Palestine, like 21st century Monmouth County, is predominantly a right-handed society. Right? If I'm going to strike you on the right cheek with my right hand, it's got to be like this. It's a backhanding of subservience, right? I am bitch slapping you in modern parlance.
Right.
Right? So this is what he's creating in the mind's eye. And what does he say to do?
Turn the other cheek.
Get right back up, let him hit you here. And get right back up and let him hit you here. And there's something, and Gandhi had talked about this, there is something within the human spirit that if I non-violently resist, I do not submit, but I don't hit back, that the recognition of my dignity grows within the oppressor.
Yeah.
That's nonviolent resistance,
Takes a lot of courage.
right?
Yeah.
Takes as much courage as a guy. And this is, look, Gandhi had said, in a situation of injustice, if you do not have ahimsa, the spirit of nonviolence in your heart, and you're not willing to die, get beaten and die for the cause, and it's a question of using nonviolent engagement like I just described, right? Or using, if you don't have it, using violence. Better that you use violence to check the unjust oppressor than do nothing because you're a coward. It's about overcoming, I mentioned this earlier, it's about overcoming the fear.
Yeah.
Right? So are you willing to stand up to the imperial oppressor and be willing to give your life for the cause? So this is why I have so much respect for, and why I resonate a lot with guys like Brown or Goggins or Wilnick or these other special forces guys that I've been, over the past few years in particular, have really gotten immersed in.
Yeah.
Because you know the courage it takes
Oh, yeah.
to strap on the gear they've got to strap on, knowing the operation they've been given, that most likely someone's going to die on this mission.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I respect that courage. Right? In the same way that I respect the courage of when Gandhi attacked nonviolently the salt works.
Yeah.
And hundreds of nonviolent warriors in India marched up to the gates and took a cane across the clavicle, then across the back of the neck, and then were just rolled into the dirt pile.
Yeah.
Right? Think of the courage that takes.
Can I kind of want to meld like two of the things, and this is going to relate back together. But so both you and Jerry have talked about, religion, specifically like Catholicism, with essentially the properties of like, hey, it's help other people and do good for others. And I kind of see, like, I'm Protestant. Don't think I'm going to burn in hell. I believe a lot
I
more
think
than
Martin Luther was the most committed Catholic of his day.
Yeah. Well,
he was righteous in what he was when he posted his 95 Theses. Go ahead.
But I think the kind of disconnect that people see between religion and a lot of the like societal progress that we're making is kind of an issue now. Like, because it seems you've obviously studied the Bible, and I didn't come in here with a note like, oh, I'm gonna ask this like hard-hitting question or anything. But like, you've studied the Bible, and I know there's passages in there that basically say some of the societal public interest issues that you're a proponent of seem to contradict what's in the Bible. Maybe you disagree, which would be awesome. I'm kind of selfishly like want to pick your brain on it, because I feel like religion, Christianity has become, we talked about it becoming like weaponized. Like, how in the world the evangelical like right has arisen and is like, these are conservative principles and we endorse Donald Trump when he seems to be so anti-Christian, the opposite of the turn the other cheek, the opposite of the like treat others as you want to be treated. How that has kind of become weaponized. And I know there's a few things in there, like religion has become associated with the right and, keeping these conservative values as opposed to the left and like embracing others and societal progress. Like we talk about like, gay rights, trans rights.
I think your analysis is on in terms of the political landscape here in the United States. And one of the problems with, I would say, the Christian left is not being as organized and as vocal. You could also look at that and say, for me, this phrase is attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, but he didn't say it. Mm-hmm. But I love the phrase. It's preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. So your actions are speaking for themselves and kind of drawing people in. And I used to tell my students this when we would talk about, if we would talk about morality and character and the mark you were going to leave in the world, and did you do it right? Mm-hmm. There's only two judges, God and history. And guess what? We don't get to know either. Now, Jesus said, you know a tree by its fruit. So if you look at someone who's claiming to be a Christian and they're a bigot and homophobic and are violent and are inciting violence, you go, let's strip away what they're saying. What fruit are they producing? That ain't Jesus fruit.
I don't understand how, like, people in, do you ever see the Whitakers?
No.
The Wild, wait.
No, who's the guy, soft white underbelly? You ever see his YouTube thing?
No.
Anyway, I don't understand how people in Appalachia are big. You'd think they would be more Democrats.
That is what I'm thinking of, like the wild world of the Whitakers.
So I would
Yes,
look. I would say it's
You think
because
it's just like education?
there's not enough organizing,
Yeah.
right? And look, if we
you
look
go
at
to these poorest areas and they all got Trump flags and stuff.
yeah,
And
well, Trump is speaking to the voiceless. There's fear, there's pain. What I find most interesting are the counties, particularly in, say, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, these big battleground states, that went twice for Obama and then went for Trump. And what that says to me in a very general sense is these are people who wanted hope and change.
yeah.
And Obama's policies didn't deliver it. Why didn't they deliver it? Well, I would argue it started with Bill Clinton on the Democratic side. Right? I think Reaganomics is the underpinnings of a lot of this, but in terms of the Democrats, Bill Clinton made a pivoting the Democrats from a populist economic message
Yeah.
to identity politics, in part because he wanted to go for the big money. Right? It's a lot easier. I've run for office.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to walk into a room with people from our demographics and get 100 $2,700 checks
Yeah.
than it is to go into a union hall and get 1,000 $27 checks.
Right.
Right? And that's to me, that is the beginning of where the Democratic Party lost its voice on those economic justice issues.
Yeah.
And this is why I would argue that Hillary Clinton did not, and one of the reasons she lost, did not campaign in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've traveled a lot through those states through the work that I've done. You go to like a third-tier factory city that's just gutted, right? You can see what it once was.
Yeah.
Where'd the factories go?
Yeah.
Well, initially they went to Mexico, right? Why did that happen? NAFTA. Who supported that? Bill Clinton and Hillary was supporting it. Wasn't in office, but supported it at the time as well.
Perot said the great
I
sucking
cast
sound.
my first presidential vote for Ross Perot because I'm telling you, Americans, that you are going to hear a great sucking sound when this
Yeah.
policy gets put into place. And he was right.
Yeah, the jobs sucking over to
Right?
from the U.S. to
And he was
Canada.
100% right. So we've seen economic policies. When you have economic injustice and you have people that consistently have more month than money,
Yeah.
and you have people who don't feel that they have a voice, because how do I compete with the guy that's writing the $2,700 check? I can't even get into the cocktail party to let the congressperson know what I think. And I don't even know if I'd have the time because I'm working my third shift at my third job to get there. So when you have that economic instability,
Yeah.
it creates an opportunity for a charlatan populace to come in and to stoke these traditional divisions.
Yeah.
Right? It's, the trans people are going to ruin your kids. The black people all want to call you racist. They want reparations, and they're going to come take your farm.
Yeah.
Right? The Latinos are all pouring over the border. The illegals are going to rape your daughters.
Critical race theory in
Right?
kindergarten.
So people who are terrified
Yeah.
because of the economic instability, who are exhausted, it's easy.
I think a lot of this, and I said this with Bill Brown when we talked to him the last time, is I think a lot of this, the origin and genesis of this, including sort of the Trump phenomenon, is the Citizens United decision in the Supreme Court, which allowed unlimited money in politics. And it's causing so much unfairness in the country and so much concentration of wealth that the people that are getting left behind they just want to throw it all out.
Yeah. Well,
And-
it's like, I'll give anybody a chance.
Yeah.
Right? I'll give him a chance. These other ones didn't do anything. We
Yeah.
trusted them. So I'll give you the practical implications of Citizens United.
Yeah.
So
That's the opinion that allowed essentially unlimited money in politics through the use of PACs. And the justification was they equated donating money to free speech.
Yep.
So you had a constitution. So any laws limiting the amount of money in politics was declared, quote, unconstitutional, violating the free speech clause.
First Amendment. Yep. So prior to, let me say this first. A member of Congress, average work day is 12 hours.
Oh, God, yeah. Now
Right?
they're spending it all raising
Seven
money.
to 7 or 8 to 8. Prior to Citizens United, a sitting member of Congress who's got to get reelected within, the day they get elected, 2 years later, and then the campaign is going to start a year before that.
Yeah.
They would spend an hour a day of that 12-hour day at the DNC or the RNC, call them back. Jerry, it's Jim.
Yeah.
Really supported my last campaign. I appreciate the contribution. Listen, I'm up against a tough re-election.
Yep.
I'm hoping you can come in for another $200 on top of what you gave last time. Can I count on you? Yep. Okay, awesome. I'll have one of my staffers run around your office tomorrow.
Yeah.
Grab the check. I appreciate it. When I get back into town from D.C., let's get out and get some beers and blah, blah, blah. Boom. Next phone's getting handed to me. An hour a day.
Everything I know about that is from The Wire.
Yeah.
Season 3 or 4, whatever. Cal Keady.
So, Post Citizens United, it's 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 33% of our elected officials' time is now being spent
Yeah.
as telemarketers dialing for dollars.
And we can't pass comprehensive immigration reform, which everyone agrees we need.
Yeah. And then on top of that, these floodgates of the lobbyists, the revolving door of lobbyists,
Yeah.
that has such an outsized influence on our politics.
Yeah.
I mean, and in this current moment that we're in, like the influence of AIPAC, basically a foreign entity is so much influence.
That's the
on our
Israeli lobby?
Yeah. Yep. So much
I took
influence.
a class on that in college, how unbelievably powerful
Yeah.
it is, the Israeli lobby.
Yeah. It's the most powerful PAC on the Hill.
So who's right and wrong in that? I mean, the guys come across the border in hang gliders and motorcycles and just shoot up a bunch of
yeah. So we can't see it.
people.
Yeah, we can't
And
see
then
it
Israel
as,
comes back and bombs the heck out of it and kills way more people. And did it start on
No,
it October
no,
6th, or
no,
is this something that goes
absolutely
back thousands of years?
Not thousands. No, it goes back to some of the key markers. The
Who owns the land?
The Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
So this is going to go way beyond the scope of the time that we're going to have.
Yeah,
but for
yeah,
people who
yeah.
are watching, if you do a Google search and learn about the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
Number 2, if you're going to read one book, read The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Israeli historian Ilian Pop. And you can also do
You
Google.
told me a story about what? Tell us real quick what that story was. You said about the flood in the street with.
Oh, sure. So in Pop's book, he talks about as Ben Gurion, who's considered the father of Israel. These guys were cutthroat militants.
Right.
I mean, it was a
Zionists.
Zionists.
And what's Zionism? It's that there should be a Jewish state in Palestine.
And some of the myth, like they would say, well, it's a land for a people for it's a land for people without a land.
Right.
Which kind of implicates, like, it's just this, there's nobody there. We're plopping there. Well, you look at Palestine, you look at the Gaza Strip in 1920, there were
was
people there.
Yeah.
Right? There were hundreds of villages, and they laid out their plan
Yeah.
on how to de-Arabize the villages and what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did in this one particular operation, they had barrels of like oil and gas, and they waited till the middle of the night, everybody's asleep, and they opened these barrels up and rolled it down the center of the village and then lit it on fire.
What year is this? Roughly. I mean, is it after World War II?
No, it's pre-48. It's a
Okay.
build up to 48. And get the book again.
Yeah.
Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, Ilian Pop, and you can get that exact date.
Yeah.
They light the street on fire. People understandably come out and run out trying to put the fire out, and they just had guys ready, and they just mowed everybody down. And it was destroy the buildings, kill, or move the people out. There was going to be no coexistence.
Yeah.
Right? And this is when you look at Gaza, what happened with certain pockets in Palestine as they continue to do these operations, people are running, walking, hiking for their lives. Like, okay, some went to Lebanon, right? Some went here. Egypt closed its borders. And it's like, you're not sending these people here. And people say, why don't the Egyptians take them in? Well, why doesn't the U.S. take in the refugees coming from the southern border, at our southern border?
We do.
Right? But there are people going, we shouldn't let anybody in. So, okay, you're actually having the people who are arguing that Egypt should take in people are the same people that are arguing that we shouldn't take in anyone from the south.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Egypt takes a stand and says, you're not pushing these Palestinians into Egypt.
Yeah.
So then what they did, they created, they couldn't push them into the sea. So you had this strip, this Gaza Strip that is now known as, became, this is where we're going to push that problem.
Don't we need Israel though as an ally and to maintain the balance of power in the Middle East and all that stuff?
This
and
is,
they've
I
always
think
been
that's,
a
I think
reliable
it's,
ally for
I think
us.
that's another myth.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and this is, people have become like instant experts. I know what I don't know.
Right.
Right. And that's where I go, all right, well, man, I got to do some reading.
Yeah.
There are 3 books stacked up. I've read them in part over the years, came out of my library on the desk. I'm going through them. I got another one I'm listening to in the car constantly. So you can speak intelligently about what's happening, and sitting around tables like this with Palestinian Americans and Arab Americans and Muslim Americans whose voices generally are not heard in the halls of power, going down to Capitol Hill. I sat with a guy who was like in tears. This guy, making an impassioned plea to one of our Congress people from the New Jersey delegation, talking about how many members of his family were killed.
Yeah.
Sitting across from a doctor who's part of Doctors Without Genocide, the first 2 weeks, 30 people on her mother's side killed. In the following months, 70 on his father's side, and there's another 40 people from her family who are unaccounted for who are probably dead.
All right. Is that in some sense, the incorrect term is to say his fault, but is that in some sense due to the citizens of Gaza not standing up to Hamas
So when you say
and choosing them as their leaders, who then said, let's go on hang gliders,
so Hamas
go across the border and kill
Hamas
a bunch
has been in power for more than a decade and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shouldn't they get better leaders?
So when you say better,
I mean, Arafat never would have advocated, hang gliders and mowing down citizens on the other side.
What people are unaware of, I think,
Yasser
many
Arafat.
people are unaware of, Netanyahu helped shepherd Hamas into power and funneled money to them for years and years.
Why? Because he thought they'd be worse.
He didn't want to deal with
reasonableness.
Exactly.
Right.
So let's keep them split. Right. Let's feed the radicals, and it creates that dynamic where you can play this harder and harder hand.
Yeah.
And a lot of this goes back to the British Mandate, which was the original control over those territories by a foreign entity.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, we're just going to divide it up. And I look at it as someone of Irish descent. Yep, the Brits F this one up too. But you look at India and Pakistan, Ireland and Northern Ireland, Israel, Palestine, right? The British were awful in the
colonization.
The colonization. So what they, and I mean, there's a lot of historical complexities to this. You had, for decades, generations, Jews, Muslims, Christians, all kind of interact. I mean, there were going to be flare-ups at times, right? People passionate about their religions. But generally speaking, before the nation of Israel was created, for generations, they kind of lived together and did their thing. And
I feel like
that's
you're missing,
bullshit.
right?
No, I mean, if you look and there was, I mean, you just Wikipedia, just Google it. I mean,
but I'm not
fighting.
But I'm not saying there aren't flare-ups, but it's not where it's like this hard division.
But didn't the Allies create Israel or allow for the creation of Israel?
It was the U.S. and the UK.
Yeah, in large part in reaction to the Holocaust.
In part,
to give the Jewish people a safe place to have their own place.
Yes, and there was a reason they did it there, because there were other options.
What other options were they?
There was a country in Africa that was talked about. There was
go to Waretown, New Jersey, where that tavern is.
Yeah, you go to Nebraska, right? I mean, if you're really thinking, saying, wow, where would Jewish people be safe?
Yeah.
Is that the spot? So this was the project of these Zionists, mostly Ashkenazi European Jews, to go live amongst real Semites, right? People that were indigenous to that area, whether they were Jewish or Muslim or Christian.
Yeah.
Right? This was imposed upon that population. right? And people will say, well, they don't even recognize our right to exist.
Yeah.
Well, okay, why? Right? There's a reason why. It's not just because they hate Jews.
You can't take today's snapshot in time and,
Yeah.
and address it. You know?
Right? You had a population of Arabs that were being displaced, murdered, and dispersed.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't recognize your initial right to exist. Right?
I'll tell you, Jim. I went to Ireland maybe 2 summers ago, and I had never been there before. And I'm like have a lot of Irish and Scottish, heritage, and there was such a connection there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like a
You feel
spiritual
it.
experience.
Oh yeah, I'm 75% Irish. When I am in Ireland, like I feel it.
And you see people that like, I'm like, oh, that guy looks like this person I know, and that
Yeah,
person looks like
big
this
time.
person I know, and that guy.
Yeah.
I went to a bar one night, and I was hanging out with some guys, these older guys, and God, they had the same mannerisms as my father, who and his father, his grandmother came from Belfast, his mother came from Belfast. My father's mother came from Belfast in 1920, around the Easter Uprising time. And on his father's side, his grandfather came from Tipperary during the potato famine. And it was really cool, like seeing that. But then what does this have to do with Israel and Palestine?
Well, it has a lot.
Because I went to Belfast and I saw the oppression and all that.
It's why you see probably the strongest solidarity for Palestine of any other country in the world is coming out of Ireland right now.
Really?
Northern Ireland.
Oh yeah, because they get
Interesting.
it. They understand these dynamics. Starvation as a weapon of war?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We know what that's about.
Yeah.
An outside imperial occupying army taking land and indiscriminately pushing people out of their homes and neighborhoods and kind of basing it on religious grounds.
Yeah.
Yep, we understand that too.
So Bill Brown, last time when he was in here, said that basically the pro-Palestinian side is winning in the court of public opinion or in the press. And I'm not, am I getting that right, that he essentially said that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Do you agree with that? Is that what you're seeing?
What I think is the Palestinian voices and Muslim American voices, Arab American voices that are speaking out about this are finally being heard. And we're starting to see more of a balanced and nuanced conversation on this. And it is like people are going, if someone says, we were attacked and we're being victim. Oh, yes, okay, October 7th happened. It was wrong, and those people should be tracked down, captured, prosecuted.
But those people is Hamas.
And
let's not pretend it's a handful of
No.
bad apples in the
Yeah,
barrel.
no,
it's Hamas.
Okay, I
it was a
understand.
military
Just
operation.
blame on both sides.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
okay, but so it was a military operation.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So let's take
Targeting civilians.
let's take for example the My Lai massacre in Vietnam.
Yeah.
We know historically brutal, awful.
Is this? Are you about to do a whataboutism
right?
here?
So no, my question is, in the My Lai massacre, which was wrong,
Yeah.
commanders made terrible decisions, troops followed them, horrible policy on the part of McNamara and the president at the time that was pushing that policy that eventually led to that massacre.
Which was something of Vietnam or something, communization of.
So they just slaughtered
Yeah, they slaughtered
kids,
the whole village.
Whole village, right? Okay. Should New Jersey have been bombed for that? Like, is that the fault of, it would have been your older brothers and sisters and mine? Like, should their schools be bombed, or are they innocent?
Well, any survivors of the My Lai massacre would answer that question yes.
Okay. Right, but if we look at it and go, well, that commander should be prosecuted, and he was, right? Like, people were held to account on that issue.
Yeah.
But I don't think that means that there should be carpet bombing of innocent people. If you look at international law, right? You talk about the principle of proportionality.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not carpet bombing though. We haven't done carpet bombing since Vietnam.
The
or World War
effect is
II.
the same.
What do you mean by carpet bombing? Is that when you just go in an endless line of bombs?
You roll the carpet over the
Yeah.
city of Dresden and destroy the whole place.
And Kurt Vonnegut writes a great novel about it.
That is what is effectively happening in Palestine.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Doesn't take much to carpet bomb the Gaza Strip. It's a strip
tiny.
after all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you've got, in terms of international law, there's the principle of proportionality.
Hey, look, to me, I think it's pretty clear that Israel is trying to get the Palestinians out of there and ultimately take the land.
Yeah.
And I think
And the U.S.'s interest is in the oil and gas that's off of the coast.
yeah, and I'm not terribly conspiratorial, but some might say that Israel looked the other way to the guys coming across in the hang gliders to give them the justification to do what they're doing. Just like the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, some say that was it Lyndon Johnson or someone looked the other way so that they could have a is this a false flag they call it?
Even with 9/11, there were some that would say that, I don't think it was an inside job, but there were people that knew. And if you look at, there was a document that was written by those real far-right war hawks in the Bush administration called Project for a New American Century.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they want to control over the oil fields in Iraq.
Well, clearly, I mean, we didn't go into Iraq because out of the goodness of we went there for the oil.
Yeah. So
they
said in this document, they said, we will need a Pearl Harbor-like event to rally the morale of the American people to allow us to do this.
Yeah.
And 9/11, even if we say it was that the U.S. government, and I don't believe the U.S. government had anything to do with it, it created that moment for them.
Yeah.
And whether or not Netanyahu looked the other way, what October 7th has done has created that opportunity. We're watching what Netanyahu and people of his ilk have wanted to do for decades.
Yeah. Where it gave them the moral high ground,
level it,
essentially.
Push all these Palestinians out, and we are going to take from the river to the sea. Now, you have people who are saying, those kids in those college campuses are chanting from the river to the sea. Don't they understand that means the eradication of the Jews? Well, I was just at a protest and counter-protest in Jackson, 30 minutes from here the other day. And you know who was chanting from the river to the sea? The Zionist Jews. And what does that mean to them? It means from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, they want the land.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
From the river to the sea, Israel's flag will fly free.
Well, they wouldn't stop there either if they could. I mean, they being really anyone that has aspirations to conquer an area. But coming back, I want to ask you because you ran for Congress as a Democrat, and then at some point you were talking about starting a third party, right?
Yeah. So initially,
what I'm getting around to is RFK Jr.
Got it.
Like, what do you think about him and this whole thing?
And will a third party ever?
Yeah. And let me just throw out one other thought.
Go ahead.
So I learned in college in one of the classes that during World War II, so you had the Great Depression, okay, and then when extreme times happen, that's when extreme movements arise to respond to the extreme time. And during the Great Depression, it was kind of a worldwide depression, at least Europe, Western world depression, and that is from which the Nazi movement arose, was this extreme. So in Europe, the political parties, there's many parties. There's the Green Party, and they'll rally around an issue.
Well, it's a different system. You got parliamentary systems that can allow for multi-party. The way our system is set up, it really only allows for two major parties.
Right. So then what happened in response to the Great Depression, instead of a Nazi party arising or something like that, because there was definitely a Nazi movement in the United States in the 20s and 30s and probably in the 40s. But what happened was the Democratic Party expanded its tent to embrace socialism, and thus you got FDR's Great Society.
New Deal.
Yep. And LBJ, I think. So, my point is that the Democratic Party, the tent expanded to embrace those ideas, which barred a Nazi party or this sort of thing like happened in Europe, because the parties were too narrow to embrace those ideas, which allowed for these other radical parties to arise. And that's the counterbalance to an RFK situation. Because clearly the two parties are trying to keep RFK off the ballots. They're trying to not let that, let a third party arise here. And there's good points and bad points to that, because you don't want a Nazi party to arise in the country. So anyway, sorry, I don't mean to dominate this conversation or anything, but I think RFK's got a lot of awesome ideas. I think this whole money in politics thing is a real bad problem. Anyway, What do you think?
So in terms of my political background, when I first registered to vote, I was registered as a Republican, kind of adopted my dad's politics and more the politics of the communities that we grew up in, right? And then I kept that, actually. I wielded it when I was doing my early activism on the Nike issue. Because I would go particularly into business schools or schools of economics, and people would say, "Oh, you're just a lefty Democrat." And I'd be like, "I'm a card-carrying Republican."
Yeah.
And just cut the argument out. And now we got to focus on the issues.
Yeah.
Because now I'm not a caricature.
Right.
Then it just got intellectually dishonest.
Yeah.
And so then I was unaffiliated for a long time. And when I served on city council in Asbury Park, which is a nonpartisan system, which I love for local politics, I was unaffiliated. I remained unaffiliated right up into 2015, when I had my famous or infamous, depending on which camp you're in, run-in with Governor Christie, where he screamed at me to sit down and shut up when I was standing up for Hurricane Sandy families that he had abandoned. And
he called the last guy an idiot.
yeah,
Second-year law student.
Yep. So we, because that had gained so much news attention, I was approached by the Monmouth County Democrats. They asked me to run for state assembly in the 30th district. We're now in the 10th. At the time, the old 30th district. So I said it was actually Matt, who was the mayor of Belmar at the time, Matt Doherty, was the first one who approached me on the behest of the chair, which was Vin Gopal. And I said, "Look, here's the deal. I will affiliate, but I want it real clear. I am independent of mind and spirit. I will not be bought. I will not be bossed. My campaign will run independently. I will hire my own people. Don't tell me what vendors I have to use. And if I pull this off and win, I am going to be as independent-minded as I am now. Right? I am not a party guy, but I will affiliate with you. We certainly, there's crossover in terms of our ideology and policies." Okay. And they didn't care because they weren't going to make any investment into the campaign because it was a suicide mission in terms of the demographics of the district.
Yeah.
And I think they made a mistake on that. And I let them know publicly. Because what could have happened that year, nobody was paying attention. It was what's called an off year.
Right.
Where state assembly was top of the ticket.
Yeah.
There's usually an under 20% voter turnout in those years. We could have stolen it. And I laid out a plan. And I raised some money, and I said, I need another $60,000 to execute this plan. And if we pull it off, we will put 2 Democrats into assembly seats in the 30th, which at the time would have given Democrats a veto-proof majority.
Yeah.
Because Christie was just vetoing everything. We could have had just zero political vision on their part.
Yeah.
And after that race, I let them know that in no uncertain terms. I have stayed registered as a Democrat since then. I still maintain my very independent streak, my ideology and praxis. So in terms of third parties, here's the challenge. There's only one book that has really been written on this. God, what's the title? Like, why third parties rarely win. I forget the title. I can send it to you. It's the only book out there that really looks at the data and really explores this. It is such a difficult nut to crack. You can do it at the local level.
Yeah.
Town council race, a school board race. You get into the county level where you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of voters across a pretty wide swath of geography.
Yeah.
Really difficult because the infrastructure doesn't exist. You go beyond that, congressional level, statewide, federal, you're trying to build the ark as the waves are rolling in, and we got to take off, right? And that's the problem with every Perot came the closest.
Yeah.
This was a billionaire who was just like.
But then he dropped out because he said George Bush was trying to sabotage his daughter's wedding. What the heck was that?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that aspect.
Yeah.
I was young, obviously, but
he was,
He's like, Larry, I'm out.
Yeah, right.
But if you think
Larry, I'm in. Remember that
Dana Carvey played him with on SNL.
That's Saturday
if you think of, I think he got 18% of the vote.
Yeah,
right.
It was
relatively impressive.
Yeah. So when you look at who wins at larger, like Jesse the Mind Ventura. Well, how did Jesse win Minnesota? Big part of politics is name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's got his name recognition as a wrestler, international movie star. right? Everybody knows. I mean, Jesse the Body, like you say it, people know it, right? I mean, maybe not so much now, but at that time, so he had the name recognition, and he had, I've talked to Jesse. I was actually on his show once. Like, he had very independent streak, and it resonated with enough people that he won. You've got, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So you take Bernie. Well, Bernie ran third party for years, and he just wanted to be in the debate. And then his main advisor was like, I think we can pull this mayor's race off in Burlington. And they put everything into it, and he wins, and he governs really well for 2 terms. Well, it's capital city, university town. That's where all the news is getting generated out of, generally speaking, for the state. You got great name recognition. Parlays that into one of the 2 congressional seats coming out of Vermont. Serves very well. Parlays that into Senate.
Yeah.
Then he goes to make the presidential run, and it wasn't because he wanted to run for president, nor did he think he was going to get anywhere near it.
Yeah.
He felt Hillary Clinton was being coronated, and that someone had to debate her and raise issues, particularly on behalf of the working class up to the middle class in America.
He would have beat Trump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that.
And the Democrats coronated.
So this is the point
Hillary.
that I'm getting to, right?
Yeah.
So, I was very involved in that campaign. I was a delegate for Bernie at the national convention. I was asked to run in 2016. I got into a race late, was kind of champion his platform, and I've been involved in politics for 25 years. Democrats fought harder against Bernie Sanders than they do against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Because if Bernie wins, it blows up the party, kids. Right? It blows up your fundraising model, because now he can say, we don't have to be taking big checks from PACs and lobbyists and everything else.
Yeah.
We did it with $27 donations from everyday people.
Yeah.
Right? It would have ruined everything. And this is why Barack Obama, in the 2020 race, when Bernie was gaining momentum, made sure he made the calls and consolidated Democratic power around Biden. And said to say someone like Buttigieg, like, here's the deal. This isn't your time. And this are the conversations that happen.
Bend the knee.
This isn't your time. We'll tell you when your time is. And this is the role you're going to be given within the Biden administration. Who did they leave in that race? Elizabeth Warren. Why? Split the progressive base.
Oh, okay.
Right? So Elizabeth wasn't told to stand down.
Yeah.
Because they could not let Bernie win. Similar dynamic happened to me in my race in 2018.
Yeah.
Part of this is the people that are in those circles in the Democratic Party, the ones who have given in to Citizens United, aren't pushing back hard against it, who just take the money. Those circles that they run in, they're not hearing from working class people.
Yeah.
Right? So think of it like if we went, you have a party, next weekend at your house. In terms of the economic demographics that are going to be there, I'm probably going to be on the lower end, right? For our friends, people making good money who are there. Well, who's representing, like, the working class? Just in terms of cocktail conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Those voices aren't there. So this is what happens in these political fundraisers when it's $250 up to $2,700 to walk in the door.
Yeah.
Whose voices are heard?
Right.
All the people that can write those kinds of checks. Working class voices aren't heard. So then, like, if we're at the cocktail party and you and I bring up politics, and we'll say we're talking to a couple Republican guys we went to CBA with, but let's say I'm not there, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, you Democrats want to run that Welly guy, went Naval Academies, corporate guy. All right, maybe I'll go for him.
Yeah.
Keady, come on, dude. The guy's a fucking communist.
Yeah.
Right? So you hear that, maybe not you, but the yous who are in those power conversations hear that and go, I can sell this milquetoast moderate, basically Republican light guy, but I can't sell the working class guy. We better go with the milquetoast moderate Republican light guy. So then what ends up happening is, for every guy that we grew up with who's going, all right, maybe I'll vote for this Democrat as long as he's conservative on these issues and, my money's going to be okay with him. We only hear from that one. For that one guy, there's 100 single moms and dads grinding it out in Keensburg, Union Beach, Farmingdale, West Belmar, right? Who never get heard from. That outnumber this dude. But now there's nobody running that's speaking about their concerns. Right? And they get ignored for years and years and years. And they're angry. And they're afraid. And they got debt. They got more month than money. They can't afford to buy a house. They're behind a month on the rent. And I'm pissed. And somebody's channeling my anger.
Yeah.
And along comes Donald Trump.
Right. That's a good
Bernie,
point.
Bernie channeled their anger.
Yeah.
With populist economic policies that should be the foundation of the Democratic Party.
It's funny. I'm sitting here kind of cracking up a little bit because we're both attorneys, and obviously you're a politician. So you start to answer a question, and then like you, Jerry, basically asked about the third party system and why it doesn't work out. And you started to like answer it in the beginning, and then I realized I'm captivated by what you're saying. But I'm like, wait a second, did we ever get back to why the third party system doesn't work?
But then Trump took that and sold Bibles with his name and sold stupid cars. With
he's a brilliant,
just making money off.
He's a brilliant con man. He's brilliant,
making money off.
He's a brilliant, extremely effective, and extremely dangerous con man. Right now, to come back to the question of third party, because of these dynamics, you go, there'll be enough people that an RFK, a Cornel West, in the past, a Ralph Nader, like a Perot, there'll be enough that that their message will resonate with enough people that they might make some inroads.
Well,
the infrastructure is not there. Like to get on the ballot. Like if I decide to run for president tomorrow, right, and I decide to run as a Democrat, I don't have to worry about getting on the ballot. I've just got to meet the different thresholds in terms of the party. Right. I'm on the ballot.
Yeah.
You know how difficult it is to get on the ballot as a presidential candidate in
they're shut out.
50 states and territories?
They're shut out.
Yeah. So the system it's so big.
Yeah.
And this, I think, goes beyond what the framers could have envisioned. It was 13 colonies.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a country 3,000 miles across and 1,500 miles top to bottom with 50 different states, blah, blah, blah.
We should wrap this up soon because I'm about to pass out from hunger.
And I want, I agree. And I brought up the
Does
politician.
anyone have a law case they've got to deal with today?
Yeah,
No.
well, we talked a lot about justice.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about justice.
I just, again, this is more of a personal kind of, because I think with where I'm at in my life and what's going on and things, is the reconciliation of, and this is a hard-hitting thing, Oscar held up, I think we got 4 minutes to ask, but like the idea of religion and the interpretation of the Bible and how you take the Bible as, is it a constitution where it's like a living, breathing document that's got these, great frameworks for how do you live your life, or do you read it textually, literally, and then...
It can't be read literally.
I agree with that, but I think a lot
book.
of people do read it literally, and it kind of stymies a lot of the progress, the issues that we've talked about.
There's a lot of bad theology. It's a book. The movie...
Scope's Monkey Trial?
Yes.
Yeah.
Inherit the
It's
Wind.
a book.
Yeah.
It's a good book. But it's not the only book.
The world was made in 7 days.
Yeah.
That's
right?
it. And that talks about stopping like the sun from orbiting the earth or things like that.
So there's just a lot of work to do. There's a lot of educational work to be done. Right? There's a lot of people who are programmed. Imagine, learning something from like when you come out of the womb, like in through your 20s, 30s, 40s, and then you have somebody going, yeah, that was all kind of wrong. Are you going to have the courage? Right? And this is where Jesus said, at his own time with his own people, he said, you can't put new wine into old wineskins. Right? So you're trying to put new ideas into these old vessels. He said it would break. It would burst the skins. Gandhi said, if you want to change the world, start with the youth. Yeah. Right? So when you look at this, you can beat your head against the wall trying to change fossilized and calcified ideas and individuals, or you can say, wow, there's this whole generation out here that is hungering for something different. Let's make some investments there and know that you are planting seeds for a harvest you will never see. Right? You're putting bricks in the foundation of a building you will never live in. And that's where that humility comes in. to recognize that and realize that and say, okay, what's like I just picked up. There's I don't know if you guys have gotten ads for it. It's called 4,000 weeks. So if you live to 88, you basically get 4,000 weeks on the planet. I have a poster now. So you put your birthday in, and it has all your weeks like blocked off in dots. And then in dark is everything you lived to this point, and then light is what you got left. And I've got it a week. I'm filling in. So it's a real reality check. And at the top of mine, you can personalize it. Mine says, "What will your verse be?" Going to Walt Whitman. The powerful play goes on, and I may contribute a verse.
Yeah.
So what will my verse, from, if you think of Dead Poets Society, it was their famous scene in Dead Poets Society, where he's saying to the kids, what will your verse be?
Yeah.
What is the verse that I will leave for humanity? Right? And so coming back to this question that you asked, like, yeah, there are a lot of people who are wildly misinformed, underinformed, dangerously informed about what these scriptures taught in their time and how we could then apply it to the moral questions and quandaries of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to spend a lot of time trying to re-educate people? Or do we go, all right, there's a whole new generation here that's way more open-minded.
Yeah.
Right? Let's spend our time and energy there. Coming back to the point that you made about the Democratic Party growing its tent.
Yeah.
And that then created like this bulwark against the extremism.
Right.
This was the approach that I attempted here in the Congressional 4th District to try to beat out Chris Smith, now a 42-year congressman, was we need to energize and mobilize people that have never gotten involved in the process before because of some of the things I just laid out, create this really progressive left base in the district, and then marry it to the traditional any blue will do Democrats.
Yeah.
And then you win.
Yeah.
And if we did this nationally, right? If the Bernie wing of the party, which isn't small, I was there, 45% of the delegates in 2016, right? This wasn't some faction.
Yeah.
This was almost half the party. Had we been embraced, and I said this, I got interviewed right after Bernie conceded and Hillary accepted the nomination. I got interviewed by Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! On the floor of the convention, and she was saying, like, what do you need to hear from Hillary? Like, we need to be embraced,
Yeah.
not demonized, right? And if Hillary had done that, if she had listened and figured out ways to pull the Bernie camp in, not lip service, meaningful,
Yeah.
right? Then, yeah, there's no way Trump's winning.
Yeah.
And it's the same way now, right? Those moderate Democrats who are really center-right, right? They fight harder against us on the left, who I would argue if we, in 100 years, if there's a thing called a podcast, people are going to go, man, all those Bernie people were right.
Yeah.
Right? And what were those other center-right people thinking?
Yeah.
If we married those camps, Trump and the likes of Trump never win.
Jim, you're another guy it seems like we could sit here and talk to for
Days,
for 5
man.
hours.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's great.
And to say, all right, we got 4 minutes, let's hit on politics and religion, mesh together real quick.
Yeah.
So, but I'm with Jerry. We're going on a few hours, starting to get those hunger pangs and all
Cool.
that.
But we made a lot of inroads in solving the world's problems today. So
Yes, we will all
it's
get the
been
Nobel
fun.
Peace Prize at some point in the future.
Thanks, Jim.
All right,
Yeah.
you got
It
it.
was fun.
Rock on.